Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Complex Like Wine, the podcast where we talk about complicated things and improve over time just like wine does. Today we have Jasmine. Her and I met back in college, so we're going on like 7 years ago that we met.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked a little bit in college because we were like in the same
dorm hall.
Same dorm
floor.
hall. Right. Like almost like dorm room
style suite.
Yeah. So, but we never really talked too much just because partly like I was always gone.
Yeah.
I was never on campus and doing your own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for wanting to come on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. Yeah, you no need to be nervous or anything. I'm going to put her plugins in the comments, but she also has a YouTube channel. So if you like daily vlogs and all that, go check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, so give us a little background on you. I know you're wanting to go to law school, but what was your bachelor's in?
My bachelor's is in psychology, and I originally actually wanted to do marriage and family. That's kind of why I went to La Sierra, because I knew that I wanted to go to Loma Linda, which is their sister school. And then probably like my sophomore year of college, I realized don't think I want to do marriage and family. The more I thought about it, I realized that I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And I was doing it more for for my family, my parents, doing it to maybe help children or families that were in my position in like such a pivotal time in my life. So I realized that maybe that's probably not the reason to start a career, doing it for someone other than yourself. Mm-hmm. So then sophomore, into junior year, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And then I realized that law was something I was really interested in. So I finished my degree in psychology, but I am studying for the LSAT, which is consuming my entire life right now. But I'm studying for the LSAT, and I take it in like a month. A month from today. Mm-hmm. I think the 9th or something like that. But and hopefully I get a good enough score to get in and then go to law school.
Definitely fingers crossed.
I know.
I know. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you.
So, tell me a little bit more about the things you learned with like psychology and maybe the reasons why you were trying to do it. Especially because I'm curious since I'm trying to now get my master's in psychology.
Yeah. No, it's a good field and a good degree. The more I thought about it, I was like, okay, I want to do psychology, right out of high school. I knew that. And I'm really not a person who kind of changes their mind. I'm really set on things. So the fact that I totally did a 180 and change was telling me maybe this is for the right reasons. Psychology is a good field. But I just realized that, people would ask me oh, why do you want to do psychology? How's college going? Or just the standard questions that you get from family and friends. And I'm like, oh, it's good, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, what made you want to do it? And I'm like, okay. And it was a conversation I kind of avoided or tried to at all costs. And then I realized I was like, I don't really think I want to handle other people's problems. I'm just trying to navigate my own. And I just couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And then I thought about why I even chose the field. And it was because of my parents who passed away when I was little. And I was trying to help people and children, especially in and around my age group at that time. And I was like, I don't want my whole life and my career and just what I wake up and do every day to be surrounded by this awful time in my life,
mm-hmm.
The reason I wanted to do it. So I 86'd it. And I remember my advisor was like, ugh, you're kind of late in the game to change. Do you really want to? We can try to work it out. So I ended up changing, and then I ended up spending an extra year because I changed. Mm-hmm. Psych is a good field. Don't get discouraged. I love it. I do love it. And I'm going to use that degree to obviously go to law school. But yeah, I don't think I'd change how I went about it. I kind of think it is now a part of my journey that I'm really happy about. But it was the gateway that opened it was the onion that got peeled back, that opened all of the, okay, why are you doing this? And what's going on with this? And just kind of raised a lot of red flags to why I was doing the things that I was doing. Mm-hmm. It was the first indicator really that mm-hmm. I noticed myself. So
yeah. If you're comfortable with sharing, how old were you when your parents passed away?
Yeah, so no worries. I was 5 when my dad passed away, and then I was 10 when my mom passed away. And my dad passed away from this rare blood disease. I have no idea what it's called. It's a tongue twister. There's like 20 letters in the name. But it's like this rare blood disease where you have like too much iron in your blood. Like you're supposed to have iron, but he had too much of it. And then my mom died from breast cancer. So I'm such like a breast cancer advocate. I got the little debit card that has like the little breast cancer theme on it. So yeah, I was 10 when she passed away, and it was hard. Like, I don't know, like sometimes I'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh yeah, like randomly, like, oh, I remember my 8th birthday. And I'm like, I don't remember anything past like 10. Probably 10 and up is what I remember. But there was so much from like younger than 10 that, not that I don't remember, but it was like, I don't know, things didn't start clicking until like that pivotal time in my life where I was like, okay, like I was 10, but I matured and I was like the mind of a 15-year-old. Like I had to grow up a lot faster. So yeah, that kind of definitely shaped who I am today, and is where a lot of my like mental health issues come from, which I am now working on, but I wasn't before. But yeah, so that is a lot of my childhood trauma and the things that I went through when I was younger. I didn't really deal with, not because I didn't want to, but just because like my family, my grandma and my uncle on my mom's side, they brought me up and they raised me. And they aren't like opposed to mental health. Like they're not gonna like if I said, oh, I want to, severely go to therapy or things like that, they wouldn't turn me away. But it wasn't something that was like a topic of conversation, like super important. So it was something that I never really dealt with. And then I just kind of went about life. Like I kind of handled it the best way I could. And then it wasn't until like our early adulthood right now where it's like unraveling in my life now. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we got to fix that. Yeah. Totally got to fix that.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
So my mom's not dead, but she's not in the picture. So in a sense, I don't have my mom.
Right.
And so there's a lot of parts of my childhood that I don't remember, or it's just blocked off.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize that until I started going to therapy, and just kind of like you were, like our household, not that mental health wasn't like a taboo subject right. or anything, but I don't think, at least growing up, it's not something that you're like people are advocating for.
Yeah.
You don't talk about it.
You don't really talk about it at all.
And then I don't know for you, but like I know for me, I grew up in only Christian schools. I grew up in the Christian household, so it was kind of more of like, oh, pray about it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's the whole thing of like, it'll be fine, but pray about it. Like God's gonna take care of it,
right.
Which to a degree,
100%, yeah.
I agree,
right?
But not completely,
right?
Like that's why there's therapy and
right.
therapists. Like you need the help,
yeah.
And so, that's why, like I was telling you earlier, like I started going to therapy for the first time because it got to the point where a lot of things that I didn't process as a kid, they would come up occasionally, of course, but I think especially during COVID, it was just like all building up. I'm like, yeah, all right, we need to get some help.
Yeah, and that's crazy. And it could be maybe like a cultural thing because especially since you said that, I'm Christian as well. We both went to the same
private Christian school,
right? So it's crazy that you say that because I remember when I first started therapy, which I'll touch on it in a little bit later. But when I first started therapy, I was talking to my grandma about it, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm starting therapy, blah blah blah," and she's like, "Okay," and like she wasn't like turning me down for it, but she was kind of like, "Well, did you pray about it? Did you talk to the Lord? Like the Lord could take care of anything, like." There's nothing that the Lord can't do. And I'm like, yes. Like, no. I 100% understand where you're coming from. Especially talking to my grandma of all people. Like, she's so much older, right? So she's done things a certain way for so long. So I'm like, no, like, I hear you. But I'm at this point now where I'm thinking I need, like, some additional help. So, it was definitely a conversation I had to have with her. And I did start therapy. I started... I want to say like either the end of December or the beginning of January.
Oh, okay.
But it quickly ended because my therapist ghosted me. Yeah, so we're currently looking for another therapist, which I didn't even know they could do that.
So they just stopped.
It's just all contact stopped, and it was crazy because like we went to like it was online. They didn't do like in-person services because they were so worried about COVID and things like that. So they're like, we're still holding off with like in-person appointments, so we're gonna do it via like, I think it's like telehealth or like Zoom.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, of course. So like first, I think I only had like 4 appointments with her. And I think the first one was just like the background of like, okay, who's Jasmine? And then like the second appointment, I feel like it's probably our most pivotal appointment. But we weren't like talking about anything. Like it was like we were 4 appointments in and like we would straight talk about the weather. Like it was just, we weren't talking about anything. And I'm like, I could talk about the weather with somebody else. Like,
I don't need to pay you.
I don't need to pay you to talk about how it's raining outside in California and how crazy that is. Like, it was crazy. And, then I would like talk to my boyfriend about it and he would tell me like, okay, well, you need to be the one to like pull that onion back and like start talking about it and tell her like, okay, this is what I want to talk about. And then just as I was going to do that, she straight ghosted me. And I'm not mad at it. Like, I kind of just do think it's kind of funny, but it also was like one of those moments where I'm like, is this a sign? Like, should I not be going to therapy? Like, was this my one and done? And like, maybe this is not for me. Like,
was it God being like,
this is, yeah. And I was like, Lord, are you trying to tell me something? Like, but and also I'm just trying to like push myself to like, okay, try again, like go out and find another therapist. Cause I'm like, part of me is like 20% lazy. And then the other 80% is like, okay, like you just have to like, you need this and you have to do it. So just do it. Like, but it's just getting over that roadblock that was hard enough to do the first time, to do the second time. And I'm like, so we're working on it.
No, I totally get it. My first therapist, when I first went, she was cool, but it was kind of the style of, so how are you feeling? And like talking, she's like, oh, okay.
Yes.
And it's just like, that's nice. Yeah. Or like, like there's not a lot going on. And then eventually I stopped seeing her because I got to a good enough place. And then this new therapist was having intense, crazy anxiety problems for months, and then my breakup, and then started a new job. So I was like, maybe I probably should go to therapy to work through that. And loved her. She was great. But I definitely postponed trying to book another therapist. Like I should have done it probably 3 months before I actually first went again. And it's because it's a very vulnerable thing.
It really is.
And it takes effort.
It really does.
Mentally.
Yeah.
To like, all right, let me scroll through. Let me find a therapist. And then it's like dating where you have to do the first session. All right, let me tell you all my
past.
My dirty laundry. Yeah. It's.
Yeah, and I remember like my first session, I was so nervous. I like had this note ready and I was like typing as she was talking to me and I was just like making all these notes. And I like, calm down, relax. You're going to be fine. Just like you don't do this if you're not ready. Like if you're not ready to open that door, then don't have one foot in, one foot out. Do this. If you're going to do it, give it your all. Put your 100% into it. But if you're not ready to put your 100% into it, don't do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give her all of my trauma and see how she handles it. And I was taking notes at first, and then I kind of calmed down and stopped taking notes. I was just like super like wanting to, write down all the things that she would tell me and things like that. But yeah, then it started to like, hey, like, can we reschedule our appointment? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then we try to work out a day, and then she would like call me, and then I'd answer, and she'd be like, okay, well, let me call you through telehealth. And then she was like being whatever. And then she stopped talking to me altogether. So yeah, we're going to work on it. It is something that I definitely want to continue to do because I just don't feel like it was a fair shot. I can't even really say, oh my gosh, like therapy was amazing, because I didn't really get anything out of it this time around. But I do want to do it because I'm in this phase and like era in my life where I just don't want to do do anything or not do something that I wish later on in life that I would have done. So I'm definitely going to make that a priority the minute this test is over.
Yeah.
So
No, I liked what you said about if you're not ready to do it, don't do it. But then if you are, you have to give it your all.
yeah.
I think it's a really good reminder for people that are struggling that if you emotionally aren't ready to like start divulging and getting into it with a therapist, it's okay if you want to wait.
Yeah.
But if you're at the place where you feel like I need to do it, like you gotta like commit.
You have to commit. It's like a full relationship. And like they say, like, date your therapist, which by the second session, I already kind of wasn't feeling her a little bit. Maybe I'm just like super particular, but there would be little things that she did. Like, for example, I would talk and she'd be like, like after every word I said. And I'd be like, are you like listening to me? Are you just like agreeing with me after like literally every word I said? And I'm like, ugh, that's irking me a little bit. But I'm like, Jasmine, it could just be you. It's fine. But date your therapist, because if they're not your cup of tea, then someone will be. And it's about what you want. But I was like, no, let me give her a chance. Like, you know. And then it just didn't work out. We broke up. So
A lot of my friends that have gone to therapy, they've all mentioned that it's taken them at least 2 to 3 therapists to find the one that they really like.
Interesting.
And I didn't realize that many people, issues not the right word, I don't want to say they had issues, but that many people needed to explore finding a therapist. But yeah, I think it's the type of thing where like it's about you, it's your mental health. So if you're not feeling the person, you're allowed to break up with them.
Yeah,
you're allowed to be like, thank you,
but no thanks.
I love that, but no.
But no. I can't get past that. So totally. But yeah, that's going to be my biggest thing on my checklist the minute I take this test. I just feel like this test is consuming my life, and it's making me super anxious, but I'm also the kind of person that just has a lot on her plate naturally. But it's like this weird in between where I have so much on my plate and I love having so much on my plate. Like, it's weird. Like, I love having things to do. I love having a lot going on. But then there'll be times on the other side where I'm like, okay, like I'm drowning. Like, this is too much. And then I'll like be down on myself when I can't accomplish all those things. But I also enjoy having a lot going on. It's crazy. I don't know. It's weird.
Do you think part of it is because you had to grow up a lot faster, and so you just grew up having a lot on your plate naturally?
I do think so. And it's like, it's so weird. Like, you know, I feel like the relationships that you have, whether it's like, you know, boyfriend and girlfriend, like your intimate relationships or your friendships or just like your demeanor, how you are naturally, I just feel like those play a lot into what happened to you, like your childhood, like your culturally, like how you grew up, how you were raised, like how you went about life as a child. Because I've heard this saying like, oh, whatever you desire or whatever you lacked in like your childhood, you want in like your relationships. Like, I've just heard that saying. But yeah, I remember being 10 years old and my mom had passed away, and my grandma and my uncle were taking care of me, and I had got my first cell phone. It was a little chocolate phone that slid up. It was burgundy, and I was in love with that phone. And I got my first phone, and then we practiced like walking to and from school. Granted, school was like, we lived in a gated community, and they still lived in a gated community, but we lived in a gated community, and like the back gate of the school still connected to the inside of the community. So it was like all of a 2-3 minute walk, but like we practiced walking to and from school, and like, you know, the alarm codes, and like, don't tell anybody the alarm code, and here's how you lock the door, and like just that dynamic. And then, you know, get out of school and do your homework, and then, you know, when they get home, they check it, like make yourself lunch. Like, I just had to do that. And then I look at my little cousin now, his name's Terry, little love of my life. He's 8, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I was doing that in 2 years. Like, he's going to be 9 in a couple months. And I'm like, that's what I was doing. Like, that's nuts. And like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I would love to go back in time and just change all the awful things that happened to me. But then at the same time, I wouldn't be this person I am today. And I just think that she worked so hard to get here. And I'm just like, I'm so proud of her. But then at the same time, like, heck yeah, I would love to go back and take all the awful things that happened to me, but I'm like, who would I be then today? Like, would I still be proud of that girl? Like, who would I be? Like, what would that look like? So yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch of stuff from my childhood that I do or don't do that totally that's playing into my adulthood now, for sure.
Yeah. I definitely relate to that. I think when people have complimented me or my brother, like, oh, you guys are so mature for your age, or like all this stuff, it's almost like a backhanded compliment. Yeah, because you're like, thank you, it's a trauma.
Right. Thanks.
Like, thanks.
Thanks for noticing.
Like, for me, I think I like to be busy too. If I'm not busy, I get anxious and then I feel guilty and I'm like, I'm not doing there's like a guilt of like, I have to be hustling.
I could have been using that time to do this, to like better myself. Like, it's like this guilt. I can't even watch a TV show in peace without like feeling like you could have been studying. Like,
yeah, I can enjoy a night after work where I'm like, okay, like if it's a day where like I can't go to the gym, I just need to chill. Like, I'll be like, but I could have gone to the gym.
Yeah,
I could have done errands. I could have cleaned. I could have done a podcast episode. I could like so many things. And I think it really roots down to, I just like you, like I had to start taking care of myself really early on, and it's almost like a very ingrained survival mode.
Yeah.
Like total muscle memory where
survival mode is in my vocabulary, unfortunately.
Yeah. So how do you, as an adult now, do you still catch a lot of the time consciously? Because we talked about subconsciously, we're like in that, but consciously, do you still catch yourself like in survival mode? Or have you gotten to a place where not the same way as like little you?
I'm in survival mode 24/7. And I think that's also why like part of my struggle, like it's part of the part that I'm healing, because I'm in survival mode 24/7. And I feel like I've always just been in survival mode, and I don't know what that looks like otherwise. So like, for example, like I'm super type A. We go on a trip. I have the whole day laid out from the moment our eyes open to the moment we close our eyes again, potty breaks, like the whole 9 yards. I'm so type A. And with like anything, I need like a plan A through at least K. Like I need like 100 backup plans in case A through J didn't work out. Like I just have to have so many backup plans, because I am so fearful that if I didn't have that backup plan, that's my fault. Like I should have been more prepared. I should have done more, because hey Jasmine, who would have known that A or B would have worked out? Did you have another plan? No, I didn't. Okay, well, like that's on you, kind of thing. And I also feel like my parents being gone of course, is the reason why I'm so much in survival mode, because of the fact that like they're not here. So and just navigating your early adulthood, like your 20s, like if I would have known how hard this was going to be, just like as a normal person, like taking aside that like childhood trauma, just like literally trying to go about your day-to-days, like being a young adult, like everything that comes with that. If I would have known it was going to be this hard, I would have told my younger self, girl, like get ready, because
buckle up
because you have no idea what you're about to go through. But then just adding that like trauma and stuff like that from my childhood on top of it, I don't know. It's not having them. Me personally, I just feel like, okay, I'm making this decision. No matter the decision, usually they're like mild to severe decisions. Is this the right decision? Financially on top of that, like I don't really have that financial help, so I'm doing everything by myself. I'm not going to say I don't have help, but my parental help is not there, but I do have people and advocates in my life, and like a community that I could stand behind, that I could go to be like, hey, can you help me? Like, hey, I need help. But it's also like, one, I do want to figure it out for myself, and two, like I have this thing, like if I ask you for help, I must be at the lowest point in my life. Like it's just so hard for me to ask for help. So I do have that like outside community where I can go to, but just like the initial of it, it's not having them, and it's like, okay, I'm making the decision. Is this the right decision? I hope this is the right decision. Just make the decision, and then have that backup plan where if it's not the right decision, then you can do something else. Or financially, I just feel like I'm not at the same starting line as my peers because I don't have that financial help. So I have to work 10 times harder just to be at the starting line that they're already at.
Right.
And it is hard, and it's definitely, I'm in survival mode 24/7. And it's like, sometimes, like, even when I'm asleep, like, sometimes I'll wake up and I can't go back to sleep because of something that I'm thinking about, whether it's a decision that I'm making or whatever's going on. It's like, I just want to know what that feeling's like, to not have to, like, worry so much all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally survival mode is my middle name. And I don't know. I just feel like even if I didn't have that survival mode demeanor, I don't know if I would be okay with, like, peace. Like, that's so weird to say, but like, I've done it for so long. I don't know if peace would bring me comfort, because this is just like what I'm so like comfortable with. So
No, I totally understand that. I think the times in my life where I felt finally like not in survival mode, I'm like,
this is strange.
like, what's the catch?
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, like, okay, like,
this is too easy.
when's the ball gonna drop? Because like, I want to be prepared for when that happens.
Yeah.
No, it's hard, and I totally also relate to the whole thing of feeling like you need to catch up just to the starting line of your peers, and like, was it hard for you with like friends growing up, or when you like went to college, like the time that we met? Like, relating's not the right word, but like you mentioned earlier, there are certain topics you're like, try to avoid it at all costs because you don't want to have to explain or talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like just growing up with peers, was that hard?
Making friends was not hard. I just feel like I'm just like kind of like a natural social person. But the relatable aspect, yeah, a lot. But I did have, like, in college specifically, like my roommate Melody, I don't know if you remember Melody. Ugh, love me some Mel. She was, and still is, we're super good friends still. But she was just, I think you get placed around people that you really need at the time that you need them. And that. She was just a person that I really needed during that time, because it was like granted, I live in Rancho. I live like 10 minutes from here. And we were like, 45 minutes from school. So we weren't like far, but it was like my first time away from home. And she was like my home away from home. Like, it was just really nice to have her around. And she would do like little things, like when I started my not my first job, but like my new job, she would like get me like candy from the caf and like write me a little note, like, how was your first day? Because I would come in super late. She'd be knocked out already. Or like the anniversary of my mom's passing, like she'd be like, oh my gosh, like, have an amazing day. She would like leave me a little note, candy, like, your mom would be so proud of you. Like, she just really, like, I don't know, she like,
that's really sweet.
So sweet. Like, and she's just that person anyway, but she was definitely like that comfort home away from home that I really needed. But there was no one to really relate to me at that time. But I also was not that person to just like put all my business out there. So even like doing this is just a very much change for me, because I'm usually like not the kind of person to just give it all out. But I do think this is like a form of healing for me, for sure. So I'm really proud of myself.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
That's huge.
And so I maybe there was someone out there, like one of our peers or something like that, that I could have related to, but I just never put my like business out there to like put myself in that position. So like, for example, even like, I mean, we're working on it now, but even like if someone would talk about like Mother's Day that's coming up, and they're like, oh, like, I'm doing this with my mom, or doing this, and say for example, we're like in a group of people, and everyone would be like, oh, I'm taking my mom out to dinner, or I'm taking her to movies, or we're going to get our nails done. Like, everyone in the circle would talk about it, and I'd just be quiet. Like, I just wouldn't say anything. Yep. And then we'd change the conversation. Like, I just would never talk about it. And like, even like, I would never also talk about my parents. So even if it was like family friends, or like maybe a stranger or something like that. Like, I wouldn't talk about them unless someone asked me about them. So, like, sometimes, like, people from church, or, like, if I go back east to my family in Connecticut, sometimes they'll be like, hey, Simone, and, like, call me by my mom's name, and be like, oh, sorry, Jasmine. And then, like, they'll talk to me about, like, ask me questions or whatever. Like, I just would never talk about them unless someone asked me about them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another reason why I was like, this is probably not normal. Not that I just need to go around talking about, like, hey, let me talk about my mom, let me talk about my dad, like, let me talk about, like, those individuals in my life that are no longer here. But it would just be something that I avoided at all costs. Like, I'd be the one in the circle who was dead silent until the conversation changed, because I just would never talk about it.
Yeah.
And then if I did talk about it, it'd be like short, sweet, no fluff in between, just the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's definitely something that I also noticed, which is one of the reasons why I was like, therapy is probably, like, something I should look into and start doing. But honestly, therapy I didn't even think I needed therapy until all this stuff just started to unravel with my life. Like, my dad passed away first when I was 5, and then my mom at 10. And growing up, they weren't together. I mean, they were in a relationship. It was more like a co-parenting thing. Like, they did break up at some point. And my dad specifically, like, he was a good dad. He, like any parent, any person, like, he made poor choices. But he was a good father to me and to my siblings. And he was a good person, a good dad. But it wasn't until I was sitting with my boyfriend, maybe like a year and a half ago, where he was like, hey, Jazz, like, out of curiosity, like, I think we were talking about my mom or something like that. Like, the conversation came up and I was talking about her. And he was like, hey, out of curiosity, like, how come you never talk about your dad? Like, you always will, tell me things about your mom, or like, oh, like, we would go to Disneyland and be like, oh, my mom and I used to do this. This would be our tradition. Like, I would just tell him things about, like, my mom, but he's like, you never talk about your dad. Like, why? And I kind of got offended. And I knew that's probably why I probably should work on it, because there was no reason for me to get offended by it. But I was like, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know why I just never talk about him. And then I, like, thought about it, and I was like, why do I never talk about him? Like, I only talk about my mom. Like, oh, my mom and I used to do this, or, and this is, like, with very few select people I've, talked to about this, but I'd be like, oh, like, this is the nail salon my mom and I used to go to, or we used to do this at Disney, so we used to go to Disney a lot, or we used to do this, or whatever the story was, but I would never talk about my dad. And when he asked me that, and I had no answer for him, because it's like, oh, I really don't know. And then I started to think about it, and I realized that my dad was the, like, villain in my mind. Like, in the back of my head, he was, like, the villain in all of my, like, in my head, all of my stories that I would, like, create or things like that. He'd be the villain. I think that's really how I really handled that first death, which is not healthy. But yeah, even, like, I don't know, like, even sometimes, like, I would, like, I just 2 weeks ago, I had a dream about my dad. And I never dream about my parents, but I had this dream about him that he, like, was alive. Crazy. I know, I'm psycho. I had a dream that he was alive and he was looking for me. And in the dream, he was, like, leaving me notes, or, like, things would, like, pop up in my car, or like little things would just pop up randomly, where he would, like, try to get my attention and tell me that he was still alive. And in the dream, he was, like, trying to find me, but I was running from him. But I was afraid. Like, I didn't want him to find me. And that was, like, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, in my head, he was just always the bad guy in all of my, like, thoughts and stuff like that. Like, if I, you make little scenarios in your head, and, like, sometimes I would think about it, and I don't know why I painted him as a bad guy. I just feel like that was the only way I could really cope with that. So because of that, I never talked about him. You never talk about the bad guy in your stories. So I just, when that really is what that was the straw that broke the camel's back, which is like, okay, you had the little baby red flags, but now this is a really big red flag. Like this is not normal. You need to really work on that. And that is the very last indicator that I was like, okay, yeah, I need to go to therapy.
It's a really interesting like realization about your dad.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you were 5. So like how do you tell a 5-year-old how to process that?
Yeah. And it, like, for example, like I did go to therapy when I was 10, like right after my mom's passing. It was like my grandma's, I think, way of doing like her due diligence to like, okay, like, yeah, like this is like a lot for someone at her age, like let's put her in therapy. So I did do therapy at that age, but it was the most ineffective form of therapy ever. Not to like shit on it or anything, but it was just totally, it just wasn't for me. Even at that age, like I just remember like in the therapy session, like it was a group therapy, so I was with other kids my same age group, and they gave us like those little candles that like you turn on at the bottom, like not the real candles, little flicky ones. We each got one, and then you would get a certain amount of candles for like how many people you were like grieving for. So I remember at the time I only had one candle, and you would just go in a circle and talk about like, who you wanted to talk about, who you were there for, and like just like whatever you wanted to say, like a memory or like, whatever was on your heart. And then everyone would talk about it, and then we flick the light off, blow out our candle, and then right after that we would go into this huge room, like I'm talking like humongous room that had like every toy a kid could want. It was like a kid's dream room. There was like a Wii station, there was like every board game that could ever be out, there was like a coloring station. And I remember at that time I was 10, and I was like super into making bracelets, so they had a little bracelet station, so I was like making bracelets at that age. And like that was it, that was the whole therapy session. Like you just went in a circle, talked a little bit about like that person, and then you just went out, you played for like the rest of the time. I don't know if that was like trying to make it like a safe space or like a fun space where you would want to go to, but yeah, it wasn't, like, looking back on it, like it probably wasn't that effective for me because I never really dealt with it until like now in my adult life. But I feel like every form of therapy I've ever tried just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It just was, I didn't have my fair shot at therapy, I guess.
Yeah. There's a lot of different types of therapy.
Yeah.
And kind of having to realize which ones work for you and which ones don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be intimidating to have to go through all of it. Yeah.
But that was definitely just a very like pivotal moment in my life. I don't think I can tell you what I ate for dinner yesterday, but I definitely remember that time in my life for sure. But again, I just feel like it definitely shaped who I am today, and I don't know, I'm proud of her. Like I'm proud of her. And it's so weird. Like even just being proud is like comes in waves. So there'll be times where I'm like, Jasmine, like you could have done more. Like you could have done this, that wasn't okay, or you should have done this differently or something like that. But then there'll be times where I'm like, you're really that girl. Like you are doing great. Like, come on, like you don't give yourself enough grace. And I'm definitely the kind of person where no one needs to be harder on me because I'm going to be the hardest critic on myself for sure. And that it just comes with healing, like, and it definitely has like sculpted the way I handle my relationships, my friendships, my intimate relationships. It definitely like plays a role in that. I have a hard time letting go because I feel like I've lost so much over the course of my life that like even that like friendship breakup that I had, like I just felt like I just wanted to hold on to it for dear life, and just anything that I know I probably should let go of, I just want to hold on to it because I don't want to let it go. And that's something that I am definitely working on now because that's not okay for your mental health. And yeah, I'm just like, that's, I'm very, very clingy of a person. I try not to be, and I hate to admit it, but I'm just very like, I'm very clingy. And, I'm like very much like we hang out and then I'll get sad when I like leave you.
Mm-hmm.
Or like, hey, did you make it home? Like, I know you said you took me to get home, but did you get home? Like, I just like, it's out of worry and care because like, I'm just concerned, but
there's a fear of loss.
There's a fear of loss. It's fear of loss. And like some people, like even in friendships, like they can't handle that. And I'm not like gross clingy. But, yeah, let me preface this by saying I'm not gross clingy where it's like absolutely cringy, but like I definitely like am that friend or girlfriend that like just will hold on and I'm down like dirt like till the very end. And it's a pro and a con because sometimes you need to let go and that's hard. The letting go is hard.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because I'm at the opposite end.
Really?
Where I can easily, if need be,
Dunzo.
I think, because like from my experience, like my mom was physically living with my family and I up until I was 19, like the summer before La Sierra. And so I think with the way I grew up with her, I just had like, I had to come to the realization that sometimes letting go is the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to friendships or my breakups especially, I think I tend to get over things sometimes too easily.
Girl, sprinkle some of that over here, please.
So it's interesting to hear like from the other end because
What's your secret?
I
need to know.
Okay, so for breakups, this one I actually kind of came to with like the epiphany with my recent one. Because the hardest part are you familiar with like relationship ambivalence?
No, actually.
So it's the whole thing of when you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. So like the whole thing with like therapy, or you're like you either commit or you don't.
Yeah,
like
gotcha.
and you're in that like halfway in between.
Yeah.
My problem, I've always been stuck in that because I'm a very loyal person. Like if I want somebody or with somebody, like I'm gonna give it as much as I can until there's so many red flags. So I'm like, okay, I'm seeing red everywhere. Right. Like, no one
can we get a different color?
It's my favorite color, so maybe that's why I get stuck so long. But so with the kind of like that mindset of having to keep that in mind, it just having to realize what, like, be honest with yourself, like, what are you holding on to? Is it the potential? Is it the fantasy you've built up? Or is it actually them in the current state?
Right.
And once I kind of started thinking about that, the anxiety of loss or the anxiety of them was so much caught up in the potential in the future of what it could be like if things were great. And then having to just really sit down with all the shit, like present moment, be like, okay, what's in front of me?
Right.
Because it's terrible. If this is now, God, I don't want to be around for later.
Yeah.
And the same for friendships too, where we talked about like friendship breakups are the hardest.
Yeah.
Harder
than your like boyfriend girlfriend breakups.
Yeah. And so having to kind of look with my friendships, I'm like, okay, I really like this person as a friend, but like present moment, how are they making me feel all the time? And just having to like, it's almost like biting the bullet of just like, all right, let me just rip off the Band-Aid, because if I keep trying to peel it off, it's going to get all stuck to like my arm hairs or something. It's just going to hurt.
It's going to hurt even more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I 100% hear you. And that's something I'm totally working on. It's like, for example, like if you know you deserve better, if you know that this isn't for you and someone's telling you like, hey, like exactly what you just said, it's like, I am so hearing you, but it's just really challenging. It's really hard for me. And like, even like this friendship breakup, for example, I was just like, oh, red flag. Like, oh, that's fine. That's, I'll just brush that to the side. It's okay. And then like another one, another issue. And then it was like holding on by a thread. And even that thread, I was just like trying to hold with my finger right here because I was like, no. And like, I knew even before I was holding on by a thread that it was not best for me. And that was hard. That sucked. And like that friendship was like 7 years, and like, and me, I'm the kind of person where I have friends from like 2 years old. I have friends that like I'm not one to like lose friendships. Like I'm really not. Like I have, a lot of friends that I have been friends with since 4th grade, since 2 years old, that we are just like together, like for life. And so that was like it being my first like friendship breakup. I'm like, how do we do this? Like, what are we doing? And it was hard. And I hate to say it, but I wasn't even the one that bit the bullet. But when it happened, I was like, I know that I wasn't in the wrong, and this was for the best. So I hope that in my next situation that I can be strong enough to do that, but it's something that I'm still working on.
It's hard. It's super hard.
Yeah. And I feel like no one talks about it, but like I feel like there's so much mourning in growth. Like you're constantly growing, and that's something that I also like. It was one of those things like I never thought about it. Not that I didn't think it was a thing, but I just never put 2 and 2 together. There's going to be so much mourning in your growth, and you're going to constantly grow. You're never going to stop growing. You're never going to get to a point in life where you're going to be like, okay, I'm good. I have no issues. Like, I don't need it. There's nothing I need to work on. Like, you're always going to have to constantly grow. And I think that like mourning those pieces of you that are not okay, that aren't good, characteristics that you should have, or things that you should tolerate, or things like that, just mourning those pieces of yourself to let them go, that's hard, because like you're so comfortable in that feeling that it's like, you're trying to like break up with your own self, like break up with those pieces of you that you have just been holding on to for life.
Yeah.
So
it's so true, and you're so right that no one talks about that.
Yeah.
Like, growing is not easy.
It's so not easy.
It's hard.
No, we need a handbook or something.
And not to downplay or put down friends or people I've known in my life where, they quote unquote had an easy life. Like, no serious traumas, like no hardships. They didn't struggle family wise or anything. I notice with, I'm not gonna say all of them, I notice with majority, I would say, I'm trying to phrase this where it's not like coming across as demeaning.
Yeah.
But they're quote unquote emotionally, we'll say, not as ahead as people that have had struggles, like serious adverse issues.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I was just thinking about this earlier because I am trying to get an internship somewhere. So,
Fingers crossed.
Thank you. You have to send in like this resume and this, like you're giving like all your life on paper basically. And, they ask you like, oh, why do you think you're qualified for this position? And I'm like, girl, do you know what I've been through? What do you want me to do? There's nothing I can't do in life. Like, I'm your person. I'm the best person for this. And it just feels like you're kind of like, because of those experiences in your life, like there's nothing that you can't face because you've done all the hard, that you've experienced, like what you feel like is at this point, God forbid, like the hardest part you'll go through. So it's like, girl, if you need someone with experience, I got you.
I say this on the podcast a lot, actually, where like you survived all your hardest days.
Yeah.
So you can survive one more.
Yeah.
Like you have the full capacity to, even though it might not feel like it.
Yeah. Some days you're like, can we chill? Can we chill? Like life will be lifing. Girls has
life
hands.
Will be lifing.
Girl has hands. I don't want the smoke. Please stop. Like let me at least get up. Like let this be a fair fight. Like please calm down because I can't handle it. So it really
so
feels
funny.
like that, and it's like you take 3 steps forward and you're taking 4 steps back, and it's just like you're just like, dang, like can I catch a break? And I just sometimes feel like, okay, like in a situation, sometimes I'm like, ugh, like there's always some kind of obstacle. Like it just can't work out for me the first time. Like, why can't it go right the first time? Why can't it be easy? Like, why can't I have a situation that it's just easy? Like, why am I going through all these hurdles all the time? And it's like, I just have to keep reminding myself, like, if you weren't built for this, this wouldn't have been your cards to be dealt with. But it definitely also has played into like it has played into my like faith as well. Like, for example, like I Christian, 7-day Adventist, and just like having like this deck of cards that I got dealt, it kind of like made me a little, what's the word, like tense toward the Lord, because I'm like, really, like, this is what you gave me? Like this is not cool. Like, why couldn't I have gotten a different hand that I could have been dealt? And it kind of made me a little bit like upset with the Lord at the same time, because I'm like, why is everything so hard? Like, why do I not have parents? Why am I going through this? And why is it feels like no one else is going through all of these issues, all of these like life challenges. And I'm just like, why? And then it's like something that I also have to work on. And it's like, the Lord wouldn't have given me this if I wasn't capable, and maybe I could be helping somebody else. And so I just love this podcast. This is great. Like, this is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
So I just feel like, at the same time, it made me really upset, but I'm like, okay, maybe I'm the right person for this job. Maybe I am the person that's going to help somebody else, even if it's just one person, and I meet them at the gas station or at an event, like wherever it is. If I just need to come across as one person that I'm supposed to help with this, my story. And that's pretty much what I hold on to. And I'm like, okay, you can do this. You can really do this. The pep talk, you got this. Like, so that's what I try to remind myself a lot.
No, you definitely should be proud of having that mindset, because it's hard when you've dealt with a lot of things, and to try to be optimistic and positive about that. Like, I can already tell you, there's people that I know that listen to the podcast that at least one of their parents passed away as a kid.
Yeah.
So, like you sharing your story and talking about it, I know whenever they listen to the episode, they're going to hear something that they needed to hear.
Yeah.
And so it's so true that you don't know how your experience can affect someone else. Like, for sure, I'm never going to be like, oh, I'm so happy all my trauma happened to me.
Right.
Thank you, God.
Thank you.
We love this for me. I'm never going to be that way. But I definitely try my best to think about everything experienced. Like, as horrible as it is, I wouldn't change a thing, because like, it's made me who I am.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of other person I would be. And I know the things that I've experienced have helped at least one other person at some point. And so it's like the whole thing. This is the reason why I'm doing the podcast, because like someone else needs to hear it.
Yeah. And I hope that something I've said today helps somebody.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else that you'd want to share?
No, I guess just the final like send off is, no matter what you're going through, no matter what adversities you're finding yourself in, just keep going. Don't give up, and do whatever you need to do to make sure that you are taking care of you. Because, the one thing in my life that I just am so focused on and don't want to look back and regret is that I didn't do what I needed to do for my future or my current self, that I really wanted to do, that I didn't do and then regretted. And I just don't want to like regret anything.
Yeah.
So take care of yourself.
I think that was a strong note to end it off on.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast again.
Thanks for having me. I'm here whenever you need me.
No, yeah. No, I definitely enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
This was really good.
I did too. I love this. This healed it was a part of healing my little self, the little girl in me.
Yeah. So, okay, since we're basically done now, like you were saying that you were nervous before, like, how do you feel now?
I feel really good. I feel really good and really proud of myself because, again, like I'm a person where you have to peel back the layers one at a time. And some people just aren't down for that, and that's fine. But I'm just like not a person to just put all of their eggs out, like all of their business out there for everybody. So this is definitely a total like flip for me because 6 months ago I would have never done this because I'm just like, oh my God, like I don't want you to know, you might not like what you like hear. And it was something that just like really scared me, but this I feel like is definitely a part of like healing. Like there's nothing wrong with talking about it, like bring awareness to it. It's part of your healing. Like let someone know that you may need help, or be that for somebody else so that maybe you help them. So I'm just like feeling really proud, actually.
No, you should
myself.
be. Yeah, you should be super proud.
Yeah, I was nervous in the beginning, but no, it was bad. I was overthinking it too much.
Yeah. You did great.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you.
Well, guys, thank you for this episode, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. For some of you out there, I hope something resonating, you got something out of it. Yeah, this is the first time I'm actually using 2 cameras. So I splurge and my credit card might not be happy right now, but it's an investment for the podcast. So
Right.
We're going to do it anyway. So yeah, I hope the whole 2 camera angles looks really good.
It looks incredible.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. But anyway, tune in for next week's episode. And I hope you guys have a great week. Whenever you're listening to this episode, whether it's your morning commute or whatever, I know some of you like to listen in the mornings. Thanks for starting your day off with me. And we'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.